Okay, here we go with some facts about I. First off, I is I. Kind of makes sense, but here's where it gets changes. Anytime you have I squared, now remember, by definition, it's an imaginary number that when multiplied by itself makes -1. So I squared is -1. So then I cubed would be the same thing as an I squared times I, which would make it a -I. And think about I to the fourth. That would be an I squared times I squared, and that would make it -1 times -1, or a 1. And then guess what I to the fifth would be? Well, it would be I to the fourth times I, which would make it then I. Well, think about it. Then I to the sixth, if I take an I4 out of here, that's like having I squared times I4, and what's I squared? -1. And then this would be, if I take 4 away from it, I'd have a -I, because 7 minus 4 is 3, which makes -I. And 8 would be like I4 times I4, which makes 1. And then here the pattern repeats, because now look at that. I9 is like I8 times I9. Oh, the numbers are going to repeat. So basically, I can never have more than one I, because if I have an I squared, it becomes -1. I cubed -I, and I fourth 1, and then the pattern repeats to infinity and beyond. Okay, now why is that important? Well, when we multiply complex numbers like this here, -4 times the square root of -4 times the square root of -16, you want to be very careful. You cannot take -4 times -16, because that would just be a positive 64. What you have to do is pull the i's out first, and you end up with this. Now, when I multiply it, I have an I squared, and the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 16 is 4. 2i times 4i makes 8i squared, and because it's an I squared, I make it a -1, which means my answer is -8. Whereas if I had just multiplied these, I would have got a 64, and then that square root of 64 is just 8, would not be -8, which would not be the same thing or the same answer. So it's very important to pull the I out first as far as order of operations go.